Hello, and a sincere welcome to each of you. I truly appreciate you allowing me to be part of your efforts of discovering truth, growing deeper in your understanding about God, and learning how to live our lives in ways that please God, so we can live in the victory Christ died to give us while helping other people do the same. I'm Pam Christian, your host and truth advocate for well over 4 years now, with this weekly podcast known as Faith to Live By, where I explore current events from a biblical and prophetic perspective so we, as God's children, can know how He wants us to respond. I've had the distinct privilege of meeting extraordinary godly men and women as my guests, with today's guest being one of the most popular by far. Based on the analytics, Prophet Barry Wunsch, known as the Canadian Hammer, attracts the highest number of listeners, no doubt because he's a proven prophet of God who's been called by God to speak to the nations, even meeting with high-level heads of states, dignitaries, generals, and more. I hope you listened to last week's part 1 of this 3-part interview with Bary. The visions and insights he has received are coming to pass before our very eyes now, and all signs are that what he expects to occur in the near future is being set in motion now. The tone of God's prophetic words now is somber, serious, and must be carefully received. We are living in a critical time where God is moving in and through His appointed people to more fully expose evil and corruption wherever it exists, for the purpose of God executing both judgment and justice in ways the world has never seen before. The Holy Spirit has been revealing parts and pieces of God's plans to all God's children, according to their specific calling, their role in God's plan. Each of us must be in prayer as God directs. We must be in partnership with God if we want to see His kingdom will done on earth as it is in heaven. Hearing the different puzzle pieces from various proven prophets allows us to get a fuller picture of what we must pray about. Lana Vauser, Amanda Grace, Robin Bullock, Dr. Patricia Green, and Julie Green, plus others, have each provided us with prophetic words to pray into. I consider it my honor to research what the trusted prophets are saying in light of current events, and then share with you my assessments and expectations. And I do so with the expectation that you will take all you hear from me and others and prayerfully consider to conclude for yourself, and then be intentional about all God asks for you to do. The Bible is clear. As believers, we are all part of the body of Christ. We are one body to be guided by the Holy Spirit of God to continue the work of Christ in recognizing, addressing, and overcoming evil. Hopefully, we have all learned it has been the passive and disengagement of the church worldwide that has allowed evil to advance to the degree it has. However, these are the days God has ordered for His church to be awakened to the truth and for us to take our rightful place of authority and power over evil. These are exceedingly serious days and the most hopeful days the world has seen since the advent of Jesus Christ. I find it exceptionally interesting that the crescendo of world events is occurring simultaneous with the high holy days of the Jewish calendar that began in October and into the Christmas season and New Year on the Gregorian calendar through January 6th and even through the month of January itself. January 6th has traditionally been recognized as the end of the Christmas season, celebrated by different cultures in different ways. Is it any wonder the enemy of God has always worked to change public focus in these times from Rosh Hashanah through January 6th? Just consider January 6th, 2021, and the dastardly events that occurred on that day with tremendously dreadful treatment of the people to this very day who the U.S. government wrongly arrested and incarcerated without upholding their constitutional rights or the due process of law. Let's continue to pray in agreement with God for His vindication of these precious people. It seems we have several reasons to be on high alert from now through January 6th and even continuing to Inauguration Day planned for January 20th. Amanda Grace, who will be my guest later this month, posted a warning on December 9th for us to watch January 6, 2025, and carefully pray against the evil government's attempts to once again cause fear and chaos in an attempt to upend the presidency of Donald Trump before the inauguration of January 20th. Barry Wunsch also received prophetic warning about January 6th in a word from the Lord originally released on November 27, 2024, which was posted on Elijah List. God expressed, the demonically driven deep state was more than prepared to take drastic actions to stop the January 6, 2025 election certification and President Trump's January 20th, 2025 inauguration. However, the Lord was going to use the deep state's efforts to expose and overturn their plans. So once again, we must pray in agreement with the Lord to see His will done. Regarding the January 6, 2021 Capitol incident, President Trump has been quite vocal about his plans to address the fate of individuals detained in connection with the incident, many of whom he and his supporters have described as victims of political persecution. Trump was unequivocal, pledging to act swiftly on day one. Trump accused the United States government and media of orchestrating a campaign of harassment and defamation against these individuals. You'll find a link in the show notes that explains more. In his first post-election interview with NBC, President Trump told combative hack reporter Kristen Welker that everybody on the Congressional January 6th committee should go to jail. Well, Liz Cheney had to come out publicly and voice her response to President Trump's position. After all, she is among those who are suspected of criminal activity. Trump's statements about the unselected January 6th subcommittee members come as Joe Biden is reportedly considering preemptive pardons for the congressional members who perpetrated a massive fraud on the American public regarding the events surrounding January 6, 2021. Joe Biden and Democrats set up the committee to push twisted lies about the events that day and to blame Trump for the violence at the U.S. Capitol, something that now was clearly the fault of Nancy Pelosi and others. There are a couple other headlines I'll address after my interview with Bary, but before I bring Bary on, I want to thank each and every one of you who are praying for our daughter. The reality from the doctor's perspective is gravely serious. She is still in ICU and receiving some of the best care available. For that, my husband and I are tremendously grateful. But we are also keenly aware of the many words of prophecy spoken over us and our daughter, and we recognize this battle of several years is the enemy's effort to prevent her from fulfilling her life's purpose. And we know we are not the only ones suffering in unprecedented ways. We know the enemy is working serious havoc in the lives of many of God's people, most likely including you and your family. We must understand this for what it is, a spiritual battle, and we must fight this battle in earnest prayer, believing God, trusting God for His promises, maintaining faith in Him that He will do what He says He will do. Amen. Truly, we have been living in a time of global spiritual war with intensity never experienced before. This requires God's people to be more courageous, bold, and determined than ever before for our loved ones and for God's people all around the world in all the nations of the world. With faith, fully expecting God's promises to be radically realized in the weeks and months to come, I am really looking forward to our planned trip to tour Greece in what is called the Footsteps of Paul in October 2025. I've sent an email to those of you who expressed interest in knowing more about the trip. If you haven't seen that email, check your spam box. Any of you who are interested to learn more about our week-plus tour in Greece, be sure to email me using faithtoliveby@PamelaChristianMinistries.com. Put the word Greece in the subject line and your name, contact information, and the number that would be in your party if you confirm your place. I should have the specific details to send in just a few weeks, with the initial deposit due around February. We are limiting the tour to 30 people, so you don't want to delay getting your name in. Sending your name does not obligate you. It just means that you'll have first right of refusal when it comes time to commit. I'll repeat some of this information toward the end of this podcast. Now, let me share with you my interview with Prophet Barry Wunsch, where he addresses the seriousness of our times and how we must be engaged in intercessory prayer in this time of the calm before the storm.
So we have sat passively, I guess, thinking that, we're good little Christians and we're not to be disturbance. We're not supposed to be, but we have not confronted these things because somehow, in our belief system, we've had a wall put up that keeps the secular from the sacred. That you're not supposed, these things aren't supposed to, blend. But the truth of the matter is this, is God has called us actually to disciple nations. And yes, this means in, in the political mountain, in the mountain of arts and entertainment, into the education, into, all the family mountains, into these places. And we've abdicated that. Uh, I think in some ways, we're all just looking to be raptured out of here, and and why bother do anything? And yet, my God, the way I see God, he's never run away from a fight in his life, nor has he lost one. But he takes men and women. I mean, he took David. I mean, David had to pick those stones up, and put them in his sling. Like David actually had to do something. And so, I think for all of us, there we're at a point where we just can't sit around on the couch anymore and think we're going to be okay and somebody else is going to do it.
That's a good exactly, I believe, what's gotten us in trouble. The separation that you mentioned and the apathy from the church, the false doctrine that rapture is our remedy. No, God is coming for a bride who's made herself ready, not a bride who's whimpering and
Yeah.
cowering. So you and I are in complete agreement on that.
Yeah.
And I do believe that that whole rapture mentality is a lie from the pit of
Yeah.
hell. Now, before I ask you one important question, I want to ask you specific. You mentioned a potential global
Yeah.
event that could help
Yes.
reset
Yes.
what's going on very specifically in North America, which would include Canada
Yes.
and the United States. Is that something that you can articulate a little bit more
Whew.
about?
Some time ago, I'd seen, an EBS warning,
And again, that's emergency broadcast
emergency
system.
broadcast system. In the encounter, I woke up and my phone was, my phone was going, and there had been an event that had happened, uh, and it was a major attack actually, and what it did is it basically triggered, many things kind of sequentially to start to roll out within the nation and within the nations. And in fact, just Tuesday of this week, Pam, I woke up at 3 in the morning and I thought my phone was going off to an EBS. It was
Oh,
like so real. And I'm instantly awake, adrenaline is going, and I'm looking for my phone because I hear it going off. Find my phone, look at it, and there's nothing there, you know. But I feel that um, the threats that are against us right now, like I'd mentioned, from some of these globalist elites are, and then some of these nations, they are in fact going to do everything they can to see the plans of God diminished. And so we know that, they are not going to succeed. We know that it's not going to play out as they want it to, that the Lord is sovereign. But I do believe that it will be used as a measure to kind of shake and wake up, the nation. Because,
mhm.
here in Canada, the mass majority of folks, they're going to Costco, they're getting their RSPs, their kind of life is normal. Now it's snowing, they're starting to prepare to go sledding and skiing, and like their lives are kind of returned to a normalcy. But I, from what I know, prophetically and the things the Lord has shown me, as well as some of the intelligence that comes in. Because we talk about things and I get these phone calls from different, stuff that is legitimized. Um, we know that there are several threats that remain over our nation right now, and your nation and ours. And it is a time to continue in that strategic prayer and fasting that, the enemy's plans would be defaulted, that they would be inhibited, and that God's protection would be upon his people.
Hmm. You talk about the people in Canada pretty much going about life as usual, preparing to hunker down with the snow and maybe even the outdoor activities that come along with the snow and getting ready for Christmas and all the things that people have typically done. But I am concerned that this is the calm before the
Hmm.
storm.
I tell you, I've been in meetings in the last couple of months, public, worship and different public gatherings. And honestly, Pam, there's celebration going on and people are worshiping, and, they're having a good time with the Lord, which is great. And I've felt in a different place. I've actually felt like Bonhoeffer, who was a German pastor who stood up, when things were not going well there. And but the sense of like Bonhoeffer, I mean, you go back to those times, there were trains going behind the churches, full of Jewish prisoners, and the church was in a bubble, not too hard to look at, too hard to talk about, someone else's fight, whatever the excuse was. And so I've had that feeling here that, we've got these things that are happening right under our nose. And actually, some of it's in broad daylight. And it's hard to talk about. Absolutely, it's hard to talk about. But, I mean, America, I mean, I know I think I heard a statistic, they had 21 million uh, immigrants come into your nation illegally, from Venezuela and from, just some of these nations that, really want to bring, havoc to America. Well, if you look at Canada, we've had 6 million within the last few years. So per capita, our, ratio is much, much greater than what it is in America. And
Wow.
so, you go to Toronto here, and even, a month ago, there were 50,000 Palestinian supporters and Hamas supporters on the streets of Toronto shouting death to Canada, death to America, death to Israel. Well, that means death to me, death to the American brothers and sisters, and death to our dear, Jewish friends. And so, and it's uncontested. The police aren't out there enforcing. I mean, these are, there were bridges that our Canadian flags hung, on during the Freedom Convoy, a few years ago, and all the truckers went, that was a massive movement, and Canadian patriotism, kind of showed up. Well, now some of those same bridges, they've got Hamas signs or flags, hanging on them as they're doing some of their demonstrations. And, I mean, this isn't, you know, the violence that comes with it, the raping, the murder, the like everything that comes with it. They were out on the Vancouver. There was a group out, uh, saw a video, and they had swords and on their horses riding the streets. And the intimidation and the threat this is to everyday Canadians. My goodness, uh, if this doesn't wake us up, Pam, I don't know what will.
I think that your analogy of feeling like Bonhoeffer in the midst of what was going on in the time of Hitler is valid. And I have the same concern, maybe not to the same degree because I don't have the prophetic gifting that you have, but I have had a dream that I've never forgotten where I was walking up a curved kind of white marble stair setting, something that could have been in the Mediterranean. It was a beautiful setting, but people were actually seated on the steps as I'm walking by them with their heads in their hands. They're forlorn and they're apathetic. They're giving up. And I keep saying, come on up higher. We've got to come up higher. And I'm trying so hard to get people to understand we have to be engaged. We have to go to the top. We have to do what God is asking us to do. And the dream stops there. But this has been a concern of mine that we are in the calm before the storm, and people are not awake enough. I mean, if you've got flags, terrorist flags, hanging from the bridges where you once had Canadian Patriot flags, that should be enough right there to wake people up to understand we've got to go about things a little differently than what
Yeah.
we are. So prayer and strategic partnering and fasting is essential right now because many of God's people still have scales on their eyes. They're
Yeah.
still not awake. They're still not
Yeah.
hearing. They're not seeing.
Yeah.
And it's a major concern, along with things that are a major concern, things that are happening right under our nose that we're really not responding to. What is your take on what Biden is doing after the November election, where President Trump has been brought in? Biden is now doing more to encourage the escalation of the war in
Yeah.
Ukraine. And it's unheard of in my lifetime that an outgoing president would do such a thing. What is your take on
What
it?
I'm seeing, and from the prophetic encounters in which I've had, my thoughts are this, is that there's a destabilization that they're trying to provoke to bring America into a third world war and globally into a third world war. And when that happens, I believe there would be a legislation that would be kicked in that would more or less freeze the presidential turnover in January to delay that and disrupt that. And so that they could continue to try and, do what they're doing and hide and cover, steal and pillage and destroy. And so, on the larger picture, I think that that is part of their strategy. But the other side of it is, I do believe that America and I believe that there is a movement going on behind the scenes in America for the standing up of a republic. Because Pam, now I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I was on a briefing call yesterday with some dear brothers of mine and colleagues from America and one very high official. And, we're discussing this. Now, interesting enough, President Trump was elected into, uh, I would say, the administration of a corporation of the United States of America that is bankrupt.
You mean with this first election in
No,
2016?
right now, right now.
Okay,
So
okay.
America is actually a corporation,
Mm-hmm,
and just like Canada's a corporation, run by the cabal, and
mm-hmm,
so they're bankrupt. We know the Federal Reserve is broke.
mm-hmm.
We heard there were those that were going to cash in bonds, and they couldn't cash in one because they were broke. And so my thoughts are this: is we've got kind of a something is going on off on another, off screen is how I'll say that I believe that there's going to be a standing up of the Republic of the United States of America, one people, one blood, one nation under God. And
Okay.
and so because with what God is turning over and bringing in a convergence of redemption, we cannot have any part of the old with us. I mean, that story of a little bit of leavens, well, spoil. I mean, I don't think that we can have any of the old with us, and I believe that and I believe that there are those that are setting up a republic, stand and preparing to stand up the Republic of the United States of America,
Mm-hmm,
as it was once and firstly established.
mm-hmm.
And so that's a bit of a mind bender for people to wrap their head around. But I think that that's perhaps where this is going.
So here is where I'll end my second of the three-part interview with Bary. You'll want to be sure to hear part 3 next week. Let me consider some of what Bary said in light of headline news. Bary spoke of prophetically seeing a scene where an emergency broadcast system alert preceded a potential global event. Could the recent collapse of the Syrian Bashar al-Assad's government be the catalyst? Reports were that opposition fighters in Syria had totally taken over numerous cities in a highly coordinated offensive and moved to the outskirts of Damascus in their effort to take out Assad. President-elect Donald Trump posted, quote, "Russia, because they are so tied up in Ukraine, seems incapable of stopping this literal march through Syria, a country Russia has protected for years. There has never been much of a benefit in Syria for Russia, other than to make Obama look really stupid. And in any event, Syria is a mess, but it is not our friend, and the United States should have nothing to do with it. This is not our fight. Let it play out. Do not get involved." End quote. Donald Trump has been clear he wants to put an end to senseless wars and the ongoing warmongering, and even before he has officially taken office for his second term, he seems to carry a lot of influence over other heads of states, as videos showed when he was at the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral on December 7, 2024, based on the way many other world leaders personally responded to Donald John Trump. Additionally, President Trump is on record for recently stating there should be a ceasefire in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, while at the same time, the Biden administration is working hard to use their last 40-some-odd days to complete Biden's priorities. Even though Ron Paul recently recommended the elimination of all foreign aid, the Biden administration promised humanitarian aid to be given to Syria, along with airstrikes against ISIS targets, and announced aid of $1 billion for Africa, all while Americans devastated by Hurricanes Milton and Helene in the United States continue to severely struggle. In addition to the collapse of the Syrian government impacting Russia and Ukraine, it also involves Israel, Turkey, and Iran. Further, based on Turkey's military firing on the United States-backed Kurdish forces in northern Syria, how Turkey, as a NATO member, continues to respond to U.S. forces in that region could become a source of tension between Turkey and the United States in the weeks to come. Alex Newman, a regular and most welcome guest on my show, posted how the deep state destroyed Syria. He explained how the Obama administration and other deep state powers teamed up with al-Qaeda and other jihadists there, eventually unleashing the Islamic State, or ISIS. Then, under guise of fighting the Islamic threat that the deep state created, the deep state started arming and training communist terrorist groups seeking to enslave the Kurdish people. Alex said, quote, "The audacity of criticizing Trump for withdrawing U.S. forces boggles the mind. Do not be deceived." End quote. Bary shared how in the natural he has seen most alarming events in Canada, one being how the movement of the Canadian Patriots of recent years is being displaced by Canadian illegal immigrants. Bary saw where 50,000 uncontested Palestine and Hamas activists gathered in Toronto, calling for death to Canada, death to the United States of America, and death to Israel. He understands the extreme devastation of violence, destruction, rape, and murder that could result, and Bary clearly stated it is the goal of the deep state to utterly cause the destabilization of the United States to enact World War III as a global war, while freezing the inauguration for Donald J. Trump from taking place. Bary stated Donald Trump's election is, in reality, to a corporation and not the constitutional republic of the United States, and how the corporation is bankrupt. So this will be some of what we talk about next week. In response to all of this, as God has been instructing us through his prophets, we must partner with God to thwart the evil plans of the globalists through prayer and worship. As Bary instructed us, strategic prayer and fasting is essential to inhibit the enemy's plans. Let me close out this episode by sharing what Bary posted on Elijah List previously mentioned. Quote, "As I was writing this out, the Lord spoke to me and said, 'Bary, call my people to prayer and fasting during this time. Bary, tell my people that this is first and foremost a spiritual battle. This is not a political battle. It is a spiritual one. The enemy is intent to kill, steal, and destroy. He is after the birthright of this nation and the generations to come. The balance of America is at stake, as are the nations. Call my people to pray and fast and come against the dark plans of the enemy. Call my people to worship me and shift the atmosphere over this nation. Call my people to stand in the light and be the light in dark places. Tell my people it is time to take it to the public square, break up the fallow ground, and prepare for the harvest that is at hand. Bary, tell my people this is a time of strategic, tactical intercession. This nation shall be built on my foundations, not the foundations of false gods. Let my people know that I am going to use what the enemy has intended for evil to bring a great awakening and revival to America the beautiful. She shall fulfill her destiny. Hold fast unto me as I am to you. Watch and see my redemption flow through this great land. There is nothing that will stand in my way to see my people free. Holy is the word of the Lord." End quote. Next week, Bary will wrap up part 3 of this interview with me in helping us to know what God wants us to understand so we can partner with him and experience Christ's victory in our own lives and for the lives of all of our brothers and sisters worldwide as we actually see the miraculous intervention of God in our behalf. Then, joining me on both Christmas and New Year's Day will be Amanda Grace as we finish out the calendar year and enter into the Gregorian year 2025. Now I ask you to please listen to my closing announcements and to take advantage of the many goods and services I bring you in an effort to at least cover the cost of this podcast. It may seem far off, but most people make plans for a significant vacation about a year in advance. So if you haven't already expressed interest in traveling with us in October 2025, now is the time to do so. We want to have about 30 people total because this size group works best for the specific tour I have in mind. We'll be walking the footsteps of the Apostle Paul. I'm using the time between now and February 2025 to determine if we have enough interest, and the trend indicates we definitely should. We have just about 30 people on the list now, but I'd like to have more because when it comes to the actual day of making a commitment, things could have changed, and I want to be able to have at least 30 actually attend the tour. So if you think you'd like to be part of the Faith to Live By Christian tour with me in Greece during October 2025, now's the time to get your name and number in your party on the list. There's no obligation at this point. You're just expressing your interest. While the specific details are subject to change, as it stands now, the week-long tour will include 4 nights at Divani Palace Acropolis Hotel in Athens, which includes breakfast, 1 night at Amelia Hotel in Delphi, which includes breakfast, 1 night at Grand Meteora Hotel in Kalambaka with breakfast, 2 nights at Mediterranean Palace Hotel in Thessaloniki, that includes breakfast, 2 dinners at local restaurants, tour guide throughout, deluxe coach throughout, admissions to museums and sites, tips to guides, drivers, and restaurants, and all local taxes. Estimated cost per person double occupancy room is about $3,000. Attendees need to arrange their own air travel to and from the Athens International Airport. To get your name on the list, send an email to faithtoliveby@PamelaChristianMinistries.com with the word Greece in the subject line. In the body of the email, provide your name, contact information, and number of people you expect to be in your party. This will place your name on the interested in attending list, but does not obligate you in any way. It merely assures you have first right of refusal come February 2025 when down payments are due. If you didn't get the details written down that I just shared, simply visit my Beyond the Podcast page using the link in the show notes. If you like what you hear from me with this podcast, I highly recommend my book series, my award-winning blog, and consider signing up for my certificate course in apologetics. My aim with that course is to help people learn how not only to use apologetics to share truth with others, but to help Christian leaders incorporate apologetics into their respective ministries so more Christians are learning how to share their faith. You can learn more by using the link in the show notes. For now, I offer my weekly podcasts, my blog, and bi-monthly e-newsletter at no cost. And certainly I have hard costs associated with doing all I do. If you've been blessed by my work and would like to help my work reach others, why not consider partnering with me? For as little as $10 a month, you can become a partner. Then together we can reach even more people for Jesus. Simply visit my Pamela Christian Ministries homepage and then click on the Give button at the top menu bar. Or if you prefer, you can go directly to the Give page using the link in the show notes. To become a partner, you can use my PayPal or Venmo account, but you will also see other ways you can support my work on that page. Whether you choose to become a monthly partner, give a one-time donation, purchase my books and products from my web store, or support my affiliate sponsors, anything you can do to help me continue this work would be greatly appreciated. And as always, your prayers and telling others about me and my ministry work is much needed. When it comes to my selection of affiliate sponsors, I first look for Christian-owned and operated businesses, and I make a point of personally using the products or services so I can fully endorse them. I seek sponsors that offer products or services you can get via the internet worldwide, and I specifically consider what is common to most people universally. So you'll find health, beauty, and wellness products through Dr. Zelenko's Z-Stack supplements and from Operation Tomahawk and from QE Strong. Dr. Zelenko's Z-Stack supplements are truly amazing and are available to my listeners for a 5% discount per purchase or a 10% discount for a monthly subscription using the promo code FTLB. Operation Tomahawk is a membership purchase program with an American-owned and operated company offering personal and household care products that are not made of toxins or genetically modified ingredients. Stop buying national brands from corporations that are part of the deep state cabal. Use the link in the show notes, and from the drop-down menu under How Did You Hear About Us, select Pamela Christian, Faith to Live By. You may have heard my interview with Rob Renee about QE Strong. Discover the benefits of quantum energy to overcome all sorts of ailments. Visit QEstrong.com and use the promo code FTLB at checkout to receive your discount. Then, my newest affiliate I'm really excited to bring you is Q Streaming. That's CUE Streaming Television. People with United States addresses can get over 3,000 channels, including live TV with streaming television without a contract. Get all of your local networks and favorite movie and sports and pay-per-view channels for about half of what cable costs. See the video promo link in the show notes to learn more. Affiliate sponsors only provide financial support to me when you purchase what they offer. So before you support Amazon or any other retailer, if I offer what you're looking for, please purchase through me. When it comes to special occasions, birthdays, or Christmas gifts, consider my books, jewelry, CDs, and more from my web store or any of the affiliate goods and services I offer. When you purchase from my web store, be sure to use the promo code TRUTH, TRUTH, to receive a 20% discount. Again, you'll find all the links in the show notes. If you like the content and resource material I bring you with this podcast, you'll find much more by connecting with me through my blog. In fact, my blog has been awarded 2 unsolicited awards for Christian content. And I'm also very active on social media. I can cover much more on social media than I can with this weekly podcast. And if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to my complimentary bi-monthly e-newsletter. I offer encouragement, special offers, and one of my signature recipes with each and every edition. Yep, I'm a foodie and I love to entertain, which is why Faith, Family, Friends, and Food is a bonus segment of my bi-monthly e-newsletter. To receive even more, please be sure to check out my dedicated podcast listeners page, Beyond the Podcast. Here's where we can connect exclusively and you can download complimentary devotionals, resources, and more. On that page, I also ask you to help me learn more about you and what you want by completing the form visible once you scroll down that page. And something that is very easy for you to do and would mean a lot to me is for you to rate, subscribe, or comment on this podcast according to what your preferred listening platform allows. You know how it works. The more likes and subscriptions to this podcast, the more opportunity we have to expand the listening audience. And that means we can reach more people with the gospel message of Jesus while helping people learn how to better apply their Christian faith. I hope you'll join me next week and tell your friends and family to listen right here on Faith to Live By, where we learn how to gain spiritual victory over life's issues. Until next week, I'm Pam Christian, asking you to remember Christ died for us. The least we can do is live for Him.